My name is Alex Tierney, and I am one of the tutors here at the Digital Marketing Institute. I'm joined today by Sean Kenny and Jesse Laffin. Sean is on my screen to my left, so I don't know where he's appearing for all of you. But Sean will be going over some of the study tips for today, talking you through the exam webinar, or sorry, the exam format. And I'll be studying and helping you guys out with a few of the less exciting details, but things like how to register and all of that kind of stuff. So let's kick off. I'm going to share my screen and just put you in present mode. Is that okay? Can you guys see that?
It's perfect.
Excellent. Thank you, Sean. So what I'm going to talk you guys through today is I'm going to handle the first few of these points here. So we're going to talk about registering for your exam. We're going to talk about, I think almost everyone at the moment needs to take an online exam. Most of our exams used to be in test centers, but now they're almost exclusively online due to the pandemic. Then we're going to talk about taking your exam. And again, that's still going to be with me. So that's more the administrative side of things. And again, there's a few tricky things you need to know for taking the online exam. Then things like, what do I do if I do not pass the exam? This is a lot of people's fear, not many people's reality, which you'll be relieved to hear. And then we're going to switch it over to Sean, and you'll be more interested in that. That's where we're talking about exam format, exam revision, more exam revision. And that's kind of meta there because you should revise and then revise some more. So we're already on to a good study skill, even with just our agenda. Okay, registering for your exam. And sorry, I should add, we'll have Q&A after we go through all of those. Now, registering for your exam, this is the first step. We've tried to make this as easy as possible, but sometimes there still is a bit of confusion. So depending on where you're at in your course, anyone who's been in the course officially for 4 weeks or longer, you should have received your exam registration email. So this is an automatic email that's sent to you in week 4 of your course, and it will include lots of information. Actually, I'm just going to switch out of this because I have the email ready for you. Unfortunately, the size is going to be a little bit small, but this is what the email looks like. So here you get your exam eligibility and your voucher code. And the voucher code is for our direct students who pay for your exam when you pay for the course in full. So that's for your first sitting, and that's for most people who only take the exam one time. So here you get all the information on exam guidelines, helpful preparation resources. You have something about exam eligibility, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But today right now we're just talking about exam booking steps. So what you need to do is once you have this email, you need to create a Pearson VUE account. Again, pop back into your email here and click on Pearson VUE and click create an account. Now, if you've done a course with us before and you've done a Pearson exam before, then you already have an account. Don't worry about setting it up. You're all set. You just enter in your details as you had before. So in order to book the exam, you'll need 3 details: your first name and your last name. So your 2 first ones are easily sorted. And then you need your candidate ID. Your candidate ID will be in your email, and it will also be on your MyDMI platform. So it's all available here. Then just sign in and you can pick your date and time. We'll talk about that in just a moment. So I'm going to pop back to our presentation. Okay. So again, you've received your email. Now you're going to create your Pearson VUE account. Then you just need to select your date and time. Now this needs to be within your eligibility period. You have 24 weeks from the official start date of your course. So let's say you start on the 1st of March. You have 24 weeks from then to watch all your modules, prepare for your exam, and pass your exam. We recommend most students book your exam around week 16 of the course. And this is because this gives you time to retake the exam if you don't pass. So you need a grade of 60%, 60, to pass the exam. Something like 89% of our students pass the exam because they're well prepared, they've studied hard. So most students do pass, but if you do have to retake, you still need to retake within your 24-week period. You don't get extra time if you fail the exam. So that's a really, really important thing just to keep in mind, give yourself that cushion. Um, Now you use a voucher code to waive your first seating fee, and this goes at the end of your exam booking. There's an area to put in your credit card information. You just need to go ignore that and go into putting in your voucher code. But when it comes to rebooking your exam, or sorry, resitting your exam, you need to pay a fee. So for our students who use the euro, it's €60. And then in other currencies, it'll just be whatever equivalent amount that is. So that's registering for your exam. Most students now are doing exams online. So you can do this from the comfort of your own home. Again, it's really easy to book. This is all on Pearson VUE's website. So same thing, you need to still go to Pearson, create an account, and then you need to click that you're doing an online exam, and you'll see the option right there for you. You'll need one more piece of information when you're booking your online exam. And again, most students are doing online exams now. So this is your private access code, your DMI online pack. So again, this is actually we're going to jump back to that first email that I showed you guys. Your pack is right here, private access code. So this is in the exam eligibility email. Scroll down again and scroll right past it. So there you go. There's your OnView access. Here's something that's really, really important. So once you've filled in your private access code, and again, then you also fill in your voucher code, you need to make sure that your system, so that includes your Wi-Fi and your laptop or your desktop, you need to make sure that that meets the system requirements for the online exam for Pearson VUE. And so I recommend, I always tell students to run that test before you book the exam. So if there's any issues that you can sort, borrowing a friend's computer or someone you live with, someone in your bubble, their computer, or something like that, I would do this all before you book your test date. Because if you go to write the exam and your computer's broken, unfortunately, that's a failed exam. You don't get special dispensation for tech problems or anything like that. So it's much like a computer-based exam. They have to be quite harsh on that. So run the test before you book, run the test 24 hours before your exam, and then you can go online. And again, the system test, it's all built in for you. This is from the Pearson VUE page, and just click run system test. It'll do it for you, and hopefully you'll be flying. So there you go. That's booking your online exam. Again, if anyone has any questions, we can go through this at the Q&A at the end. Okay, taking your exam on the day. What you need to know first of all is that your exam is delivered fully by Pearson VUE. So even though it's a DMI course, a DMI module, is sort of we're jumping to a new bubble for the moment with Pearson VUE. So any tech issues that you might have, any issues with proctors, I'll talk about that in a moment, any kind of issues you have on that day, that's all with Pearson. So you need to contact their contact support system. Unfortunately, the DMI just doesn't have access to any of their tech or anything like that. It's all licensed with Pearson VUE. So that's your contact for the day. So just make sure you have their email if anything goes wrong. So the first thing is that, yes, Pearson VUE. The second thing is a lot of people are wondering, how does the online exam experience work? Well, what happens is, and it's a bit strange, so you take your exam on your computer, much like you were doing your practice quizzes and stuff during the modules, but there's a proctor, so a supervisor, who sees you. You have to have your webcam on the entire time, and they're watching much like an exam supervisor would in person. So what that means is you cannot leave your screen or your camera at all. Can't get up and get water, can't go to the bathroom, can't do anything like that. So just be very aware of that. Unfortunately, we've had situations where we've told students, cannot do this, cannot get up. If the doorbell goes, unfortunately, it's just because of the nature of, it's an exam. Everyone has to be on the exact same level, that you can't leave the camera. If you go, it's an automatic fail. You can have a glass of water, clear glass of water. Again, that's to make sure, there's not that anyone watching would cheat, but this is, again, just to make sure that you are fully, I guess, fully transparent, fully clear. that you cannot do anything tricky. The last thing is your results, once you finish the exam, your results will be in your Pearson account by the end of the day. So you'll get almost instant feedback on your exam. So this is a question that we get a lot, is what happens if I don't pass the exam? And this is, again, just a reminder that a grade of 60% or higher is required to pass the exam. If you don't pass, you still have 2 more attempts. So overall, you have 3 attempts to pass the exam. And you can try, and you have those 3 attempts. So you have to take the exam within the 24-week eligibility period, as I mentioned at the beginning. And the retake fee is €60. And that, again, will be converted into whichever currency you work in. Before we switch over to things like the exam format and tips with Sean, I just want to show you a really important resource for you guys. So we're going to pop into the support area. So as you are all familiar with, this is where your course lives. They live in this section here. We're going to pop over to support and then the knowledge base. So of most interest to everyone watching here is the exams section. So here you can ask any type of question. So here are the instructions on how to book the online proctored exam. So we'll give you a step-by-step guide. So it's very easy, 3 steps. So again, this is in your knowledge base. Things like the private access code, that's the pack, that's here as well. Then we have, so it tells you to go to your exam email. So it tells you, again, here's some things like I had never heard of a hotspot question. Sean's going to talk about different types of questions. I'd never heard of one before. So this was really helpful to me. A hotspot question, for anyone who's wondering, is where you hover over and click a part of an image that's on the screen. You have to say identify where the digital marketer is, and you have to go on the screen and click them there. That's not a type of question you get. What type of questions can I expect? Where can I locate a test center? All these types of questions, it's just they're all here. So this is really, really helpful when it comes to the administrative side of booking your exam. I might leave it there for now. Sean, if I'm forgetting anything, well, we'll just come back to it in questions.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I will stop sharing my screen.
Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Great. All right. Thanks, Alex, and hi, everyone. I just want to take you through exam formats, and I want to take you through some general best practice as well in the lead up to your exam. So first of all, I always say you won't be surprised by the format of the exam. As you're coming through the course, you will be doing the quiz questions at the end of each section, and pretty much the exam is taken from that format. So there's no big surprise on the day itself. As well, Alex may have said, whether you take the course in a test center or you take it online, the exam format's exactly the same. So you have 3 hours to complete approximately between 180 and 200 questions. And these questions do span all of your course. And I appreciate some of you are on the DMI Pro and some of you are on specialist courses, but it will cover all kind of 10 modules of your course. So the exam questions will be quite comprehensive, and they kind of do go section by section as well. And to confirm, there are no open questions, so you won't have any long form typing or anything like that to do, just in case you're worried about that aspect of it or your typing speed. It is pretty much just each question is a selection of what you see here in the bullet points. So it's either multiple choice, where you can have a single response where you just click one of the options. Quite often we'll ask you to select the 2 right answers or something like that, which would be multiple choice with multiple responses. The hot spot questions, which Alex just covered there. And then we do have image supported questions. So you'll be familiar with these from the quizzes, but just to confirm for anyone coming through those quizzes, sometimes obviously in those quizzes, the legible part of the image is only really the kind of like the key headings, but rest assured on your exam, you'll be able to read everything. It'll be a very clear format if there is an image incorporated into the question. And then there's a mix of questions that are a little bit more interactive. Again, fairly like the exam prep and the quizzes on your course. There's drag and drop, matching of terms, and ranking things in order of importance and so on. Overall, and as far as exams go, very kind of easy to understand format. And in terms of, on the day coming through it, I know 180 questions sounds like a lot, but for each particular question, it won't take you too long to identify what the question is, and then obviously how to answer it as well. Moving on to exam tips and revision. So I'll just kind of break it up into a few different sections, and we're taking a lot of this from student feedback, but then also, what we've always kind of traditionally said, would be the best approach to revising for your exam. So I guess it goes without saying you have to watch the lecture videos, but you should kind of focus on a few key things as you're kind of moving through those videos. So one thing would be the summary slides that you'll see throughout the course. I'll share where they are with you in a moment, but you'll see them actually as you come through each section. You'll have a summary slide, and it's literally just one slide, and it's just highlighting the key things for you to remember from that section of the course. So that's one key thing as you're moving through those video lectures. We're obviously internationally based, and a lot of you will have English as a second language. Now, if that's the case, we would advise you to look at maybe even the transcripts of some of the lectures if you're not sure. Just to go back and make sure you fully understood the discussion during the lecture. One place in particular, Alex may have showed it to you, I'll just show it to you again, but I always advise you to familiarize yourself with the course info tab. So just to show it to you very quickly, you'll find it here in the upper right hand side of your course, and when you click through that, sorry, my apologies, when you click through that, it will give you like a breakdown of a lot of the different things that we're talking about today in terms of exam format, eligibility, exam overview, and so on. So really helpful. So again, you're moving through the lectures, you're reading the summary slides, but there are other resources there for some of you who are either new to digital marketing or, again, English is a second language. So a really good exercise is to, if you're new to digital, is to go through the key terms that are used in the lectures, just so that you're not bamboozled by them on the day of the exam. And in the area that Alex showed you, the support area, there's actually a glossary, and it's really comprehensive, and you can search by term. So something like CPC is a new kind of acronym to you, cost per click. You'll find it there, and you'll just be able to kind of maybe even practice with a friend or a family member remembering those terms, so that the actual terminology is not an issue on the day. But I would familiarize yourself with that support area and the glossary section for that. And then obviously it goes without saying, just spend extra time on technical aspects that you're unfamiliar with. So obviously the kind of beauty of the DMI courses is that they're broken up into bite-sized chunks. So if you're coming through the exam prep tool, which I'll cover now in a second, but if you're coming through that or the quiz questions and there's one particular topic, or there's one particular subsection of a topic that is confusing you, just navigate back to it, revise it, take notes on it, and use the other resources there to clarify it for yourself. Other revision tips would be to also engage with the practical exercises that you'll find in your course. So like the summary slides, the practical exercises are actually at the end of each section. There will be practical type questions in the exam. Now, they're obviously quite simplistic in terms of you click in the correct place on the screen and so on. You won't be asked to set up a campaign or anything during your exam, but it's just good to familiarize yourself with the layout of things like Google AdWords, Google Analytics, and the kind of key social media platforms. Basically just so you know how to navigate around them, because they are likely to come up as quiz questions. Another key tip is just in terms of how the course is outlined. So revise the course content in sections. So again, let's say, for example, that search marketing is something that doesn't come easy to you, go back to that and revise those questions over and over again, and download the resources available to you, or that accompany those lectures for extra revision. I'll have a quick look at what those resources are in a second, but I'm sure you're familiar as you kind of move through the course. Some of you like to write your own notes. That's perfectly fine, but just also bear in mind as well, to save yourself maybe any trouble, we do have slides that you can download in a PowerPoint version. If you don't have PowerPoint, you can always use a workaround there and upload it to the kind of Google Slides version, if you're using that, if you're using Google Suite. I'll just take a very quick look to show you where you'll find that. So just below your lectures, these are obviously the summary slides, but below here you have, under resources, you have slides with lecture notes, which are very useful. So be sure to download them. Again, I mentioned if English is your second language and you want to look at transcripts, you would do that here. And then you have a glossary of terms as well that's used in each section. And I'd go through that as well. And then there's other resources here, such as the quizzes and the practical exercises for a quick jump through. But always just be mindful of this area here. In terms of exam prep, I think it's the most important to spend all your time with here as you move through. So yeah, kind of just in terms of planning your exam, just a few key things that you might consider when you're taking any exam really. But all of you are on different schedules, whether you're working professionals or you're living at home, kind of with the kids, or we all have kind of very different situations at the moment. We all have very different schedules and study hours. For you, it might be best to study at night as opposed to during the day and so on. But just some good advice is actually to create a study plan in the lead up to your exam and actually box off the hours that work for you and then try stick to them. Try to work in short bursts as well. Again, it's general advice, but just for your attention span and retaining information, if you have 1 hour where you study, take 15 minutes off and so on, it just makes it ensures you're absorbing that information and you're taking on board and you're not stressing yourself out. And that kind of leads to another point in the lead up to the exam. Do make sure that you take time to eat, sleep, relax when you come into your exam. There's nothing really to stress about. Exams are not life and death, obviously, but just, for this exam, don't be overstressed. You are going to be familiar with it. There's nothing that's going to surprise you if you've been revising. So make sure to do the key things like eat, sleep, and relax. But just on this first point here as well, which I've included on this slide, perhaps I should have put it on another one, but if you are someone who's engaging with the resources tab in your course, the library, any of the webinars in there or any of the content in there, they're not going to come up on the exam, so don't worry about that. Just to confirm, it will all be centered around content on the course. I think we're going to open it up to a Q&A now, and myself and Alex will kind of take some questions that you guys might have been throwing up in chat.
Alrighty, well that sounds good. I can be our hostess for questions if you'd like, Sean. I will also help answer them. I won't just put you on the spot, but I'm happy to pick and choose. So in terms of time, we won't be able to get to everyone's questions. So I'm just going to try to answer sort of our commonly asked questions, and then we're going to have any follow-up questions in the community forum thread that Sean
You know what
discussed.
I might do, Alex, is actually one thing I forgot to mention. I'll show it now. So when you are, perhaps after you've watched this, if you have any follow-up questions as well, we have a thread here in your community section. So it's this one here. Am I sharing my screen at the moment?
Yeah.
Brilliant. It's the Your Ultimate Exam webinar. So I'm going to edit this a little bit later on, and just two key things in here so you can put in any questions below. Here's your link to watch this back, but also I forgot to mention the exam prep tools. Okay, so we have a number of them, and they're quick links to help you practice with your exam. I'll leave them in this post here and I'll edit it. But sorry about that, Alex. I forgot to mention it a second
Oh,
ago.
no worries. No, there's so much that I think we'll chat about in the questions, that kind of thing too. So first of all, I'm just scrolling through and seeing where everyone is from, and I'm very jealous about snowy Chicago, generally Italy, jealousy. Toronto, Craig, I'm from Ottawa, so lovely to see another Canadian. Armenia. Okay, so now down to business. Hello, everyone. Um, so the first question here is, yes, this is a really important thing that I realized I probably was a bit misleading. We have a question from Victoria who said that she actually already had an appointment booked at a test center. Is there a way to check if it's moving online? Victoria, you would have received an email if your test was cancelled. You would receive an email to say it's been cancelled and you have to go and book online. If you aren't too sure, just go to your Pearson VUE account and see what the status of your exam booking is. I saw from another student there was a question about a student in Armenia who had also booked at a test center and you're concerned that the test is moved online. It hasn't moved online unless you've received official information from Pearson that it has. So there are some countries that are still doing in-person testing. And for those, it'd be the exact same format as Sean mentioned. It's everything is still the same except for you're just at a computer in person. So everything is still computer based. So unless you've heard otherwise, your test is still going ahead, but just double check on Pearson VUE just for peace of mind. So that was the testing. Um, just finding one here for you, Sean. Da, da,
Sure.
da. Can you say again what hotspots are? See,
Hotspot questions.
yeah, this is from Bryn.
Yeah. So that's actually a good question. It's slipped my mind now.
I can. I'm more than happy to.
Yeah,
At
you had
this
a good
point, I'll show
description of
off.
it there. Yeah.
Sorry to put you on the spot there. So a hotspot question is essentially where you're looking at the screen and the question says, highlight on the screen where I can't think of an example, but where you would do X, Y, and Z on Google Analytics. And you just have to click on the part of the screen that has that. So um, it might say, where on the screen could you interact with this social media post? And you would click on the screen like, do you know what I mean? Like that's sort of
Yeah.
where
Yes.
it's isolate on the screen where it is.
Sorry, the name threw me for a second, but they're common in the exam itself. So Alex used a good example. Another example, for instance, Brendan, would be Google Analytics. If you have a question on Google Analytics, and it might say something like, "Where's the acquisition tab?" Which would be something covered in the course. And they're actually, I kind of discussed them briefly, but they're kind of just to make sure the student knows how to navigate around the key platforms such as Facebook, which Alex mentioned, or it could be Twitter, LinkedIn, Google Analytics. They don't really span outside of those platforms. So they're kind of the key ones: Google Analytics, Google AdWords, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, usually. But they won't throw any curveballs at you. Or won't ask you to look at a platform that's not covered on the
No,
course or anything like that.
no. If it's any consolation or any reassurance for students that we write the exam, so the exam is set by the DMI, even though it's administered by Pearson, it's all from within the DMI. So the same people that write your module, that write your module quizzes, all of that kind of stuff, they're the same people who do the exam. So it won't be a brand new person that's not familiar with our material and is just kind of picking stuff out. It's not like that at all. It's fully thought through. And anyway, it's all very logical. So all of the tests that you've been doing in your quizzes and all of that, all of those types of questions will be on the exam. So it's all very fair and reasonable. Um, Sean, I have another one for you here. Um, so this is from Sinead. For multiple choice and the ones that have multi responses, so where it says, click all these ones that are correct or whatever a multi response question might be. If you get one correct response but one incorrect response, will you receive a half point or will it be scored as incorrect?
It's scored as incorrect. In that case, there are no half points. So it's kind of all or nothing where you have those two options. Yeah, just to confirm.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, when you do the quiz, if you are clicking the multiple choices, you'll still get that red one, which unfortunately I'm very familiar with, that says you're incorrect, go back. Or sorry, it's blue, it's not red, that says you're incorrect, you have to go back. So I wish we were nicer for that. Um, okay, I'm going to take a few now. So I have one from Anastasia. How come you have to complete the exam within the 6 months? Why aren't time extensions offered? So Anastasia, that's because we have to stick in line with our accreditation provider. And also because we need to make sure everyone has the exact same potential and opportunity to do the exam. So it's just like any course you ever take, it always has a time period constraint. So I mean, we do offer extensions for medical emergencies and all of that, but if you do apply for an extension, you need to give us supporting documentation. The other thing, I have a few questions here about people wondering, should I cancel my in-person exam and change it to online? You're welcome to do that. The only thing that you have to do is it has to be at least 24 hours. I'd suggest much further back. But if it's, yeah, it has to be at least 24 hours from your exam. Um, if you change the exam within 5 hours, then you'll get charged for that sitting. It's a failed seating. You don't get refunded for it, and you have to rebook again. So if you are going to do that, do it well before um, your exam. Uh, just looking in here. If we fail the test during our first try, can we redo the test in a few days? Yes, I believe it's either 24 or 48 hours. Is that right, Sean?
Yeah, so I think it's 48 hours. At the very most it's 72, but you won't have to wait, a couple of weeks or anything like that. It will literally be 2 or 3 days. And actually, the reason I don't know offhand is I think we're not talking about them today, but the DMI tracks it's 72 hours, and
Mm.
I believe the Pro is 48 hours or something. So it will literally be 2 or 3 days to get another chance to resit it if that's what suits you. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a question here. Are there practice tests? So for the DMI Pro, there is. I know a few people on here are from our specialisms. But for the Pro, there's the practice exam tool that Sean will link to on the thread. Here's a question that I actually don't know the answer to. Sean, I don't know if you would, but if we don't, we'll put this on the thread. If
Hmm.
someone walks behind you on camera during the exam, are you disqualified? Don't know the answer to that.
I think offhand that they ask that you make sure you're in the room on your own and so on. It's definitely one to confirm the thread, just to definitely get you a definitive answer on that. But I believe it. I would say anyway, regardless, I would say try to ensure that doesn't happen, because there's other problems that'll come out of that if they make noise, or if they're moving around
Yeah,
and distracting you and so on. But whether it's mandatory, we'll have to double check. There's a set of guidelines. I believe they're actually up on the platform as well, but I'll link them in with that thread for you as well.
perfect. Um, okay, the term, this is from John. Uh, he's saying the term revising, does that mean reviewing your incorrect answers on the practice quizzes and then revising? What's best practice on doing that since the correct answer covers up your answers? John, I'm not too sure. Sean, do
I
you
mean,
know?
yeah, I mean, I'll have a crack at answering that. So, I mean, in terms of what revision is, I guess just in a traditional sense. Now, I guess what's different, everyone has the school experience and taking exams and cramming and all of that kind of thing. What's a little bit different with us, obviously, is we've a lot of different types of resources. So we're not just talking about books and notes, as a lot of you will be used to. There is no one single thing that you should spend all your time on in terms of revision. You should be doing quiz questions to identify weak areas. Then you should be going back to those actual modules and maybe re-watching lectures, if your understanding is weak. You should also be looking at the summary slides I would say download all the summary slides or take screenshots of them and so on. And well, they'll be in the lecture slides as well, but you want to also focus on the key points. You don't want to spend too much time on some of the lesser points in the lectures. So engage with every aspect of the course is my best advice. But use the exam preparation tools that will link to you in the thread to identify kind of weak areas and that's just as simple as when you see where you're scoring the lowest, um, especially if it's repeatedly, that's the area to go back over again and again.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have another one for you. It's an easy one. Um, Yulia is wondering, will we have to create campaigns slash ad groups like in the practical exercises after each module?
No, no, you won't. So those, yeah, but it's a good question because I've used the term practical questions, and they are practical exercises, in your course. So that hotspot format that we talked about, that's the kind of type of practical question that comes up. So basically where they're asking you to click through Google Analytics just to show where a tab is, and they might ask you what's the button to create a campaign, but you would not have to, like the exercises on your course, you would not have to start entering keywords or stuff like that and setting up campaigns. That absolutely won't be there. And in general, I kind of I touched on it, but there's 180 questions plus. They'll all take about, if you know the right answer or whatever, they'll all take 20 seconds to do, really. So there's no one question there that will require 5 minutes of your time or anything like that.
Mhm. Um, Thank you very much. Oh, and John says, thank you. This is your question about revisions. And John, I see another follow-up. You're just wondering, is the thread going to be in an email? So no, the thread, I'll see if I can link it to the email that we follow up with you here, but you can find it easily if you just go into community forum, the general forum, and you'll see exam webinar, and that will be there. So it's a good exercise to get you using your forum. Sorry, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, just to help everyone as well find it, I'm going to type a little comment under it just to bump it up there. So it will be hopefully at the top of general after this. If you're rewatching this back in a couple of days, I'll kind of bump it every day or two, so you'll find it. But the name of it is, you can search the forums by title, and it's called Your Ultimate Exam Webinar as well.
Excellent. Okay, I'll just have time for a couple more. Um, so I'm just seeing a similar question here about not passing the exam. If we don't pass the exam, will we be given a review of the exam questions that we missed? Yes, you will see the exam questions that you missed. Myra, you're wondering here about, you've already made an appointment for your exam. Can you change the venue? So yes, as long as it is 24 hours or um, longer before the exam. Uh, Camille is wondering, do we recommend that you have a Google AdWords and Google account up and visible during the exam? I would say no, do not do that, right?
So that's not necessary. It's the reason I wouldn't usually advise people to do it or to stress about that is now, currently, and I should say recently, to have a Google AdWords account, you actually have to start a campaign, right? So we definitely don't require you to do that. And then with the Google Analytics account, you can have one of them for free. But again, it's not mandatory. What's kind of covered during the course will definitely get you through the exam or anything that the exam questions are going to cover. But definitely don't go starting any PPC campaigns just so you can do a little bit better in your exam. It's not needed.
Yeah,
I
definitely
should
not.
say, sorry, Alex, I just remembered. One useful resource actually for practical questions in your exam is in the library, or now called the resources tab. So if you search in your library walkthrough, it's going to give you a list of walkthroughs done by Colm Lynn, and you have a walkthrough Google Analytics, Google AdWords, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so on. And they're very comprehensive in kind of showing you where all the tabs are and stuff like that, and they give you a little bit more insight anyway, but they might be worth watching just as you're kind of practicing or revising for your exam.
That's a great idea. Okay, I'm just going to finish up with two questions here. I've lost them. But the first question was wondering, and this is a great question, do you need to watch all of the modules ahead of your exam? Now, we'd absolutely recommend doing that. 100% get to that 100%, but it's not like you are ineligible to take the exam if you're not at 100%. So you can take the exam at any point in the progress. Of course, we recommend in order to pass, you do all of the course. But if you are an SEO specialist and you choose not to watch that and you focus on other stuff, to each your own. But that would be you don't have to qualify for the exam there. The last thing was it was a good question, and now just let me find this here. Uh, do people struggle to finish the exam the time given? No, they don't. Are DMI sprints part of the exam? No. So your exam is solely your program. Uh, and last one that I am looking for. Oh, yes, it was mainly just, Sean, if you might be able to do this. Um, they were just wondering, a few people were just looking for clarification as to how the exam practice tool relates to the exam. Is it similar to the exam, um, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, very similar. Very similar. I mean, you'll notice when you're looking at, say, let's compare the exam prep tool and the quiz questions, they're slightly different, right? And that this, there's just a slight difference in structure, let's say. Um, the exam itself is almost exactly like that exam preparation tool. So it's a little bit different from the quiz questions, but I do advise you actually practice both the quiz questions embedded in the course and the exam prep, because the quiz questions they basically kind of cover the types of questions you'll be asked, but they help you kind of navigate to a specific part of the course and focus on it. And the exam preparation tool, yeah, it's like an exam simulation basically as well. So, kind of that covers the same format, same type of questions, worded in the same types of ways, and so on. So it's the best one to practice or simulate the actual exam. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely the one to go for. I'm just seeing a simple last question. Marco is just wondering, do I need to use my own laptop at the Pearson VUE Testing Center, or do they have facilities for me to use? So they have facilities for you to use at the testing center, so you don't have to worry about bringing your own. I think if you bring your own, you probably won't be able to use it. Um, the last one from Simon is, how do you determine the number of questions each student would be tested, since the total number of exam questions is between 180 to 200 questions? And Simon, we have that listed just because it depends on what version of the Pro you're on. We have two different exams that students take. Um, and one version 7 has a certain number, version 8 has a certain number. So that's to cover it off. I believe it's 185. Ooh, I could be
Yeah.
wrong giving you that number, but I think it's 185 for version 8. And most people on this um, webinar right now are on version 8, I believe. Perfect. Oh, thank you for making time to do the webinar. I personally am a little more relaxed going in. Thank you very much, Mark. It was our pleasure. Marco says thank you above that. So, Sean, is there any final wisdom you'd like to share, or are you feeling good? Have we covered everything that?
Well, there's always more questions, so I'd say definitely engage with the thread in the community forum. And actually, if anyone thinks of questions afterwards, I'll follow up there, and so will Jesse and Alex as well. So, and I'm going to obviously leave in links there to little things we discussed. And obviously, just as many of you know, you can contact us through the support as well anytime as well. So,
Yeah.
if you think of
Oh,
anything
yeah. The
after.
main email is admin@digitalmarketinginstitute.com. That is your guide and shepherd throughout all this, in addition to your glorious tutor team. But admin@digitalmarketinginstitute.com. You will see it everywhere on the website if you don't remember it right now. So don't worry. But thank you very much, everyone. And looking forward to seeing you all at a future webinar. Best of luck on your exams, and see you in another course, hopefully, too.
Good
Thanks.
luck.
Bye,
Take
everyone.
care.